Welcome back to our video tutorial series on how to interpret songs from the real book. We are focused on the tune Detour Ahead, which for me was a new song. It was suggested by one of our subscribers, Martin Waugh. I appreciate the suggestion. And it's been fun to learn this new tune. I'm actually in the early stages of it. What I'm doing is I'm going bar by bar, melody note and chord by chord to interpret what is given to me by the real book. And of course, how do I embellish that to make it an improvisation? Now, we've essentially reached the bridge. There were two video tutorials before that. We covered the A section, and it's essentially an AABA tune, although the last A changes a little bit, and we'll talk about that. We're now at the bridge, and we're thinking about how do we play the melody and the chords together to make a real improvisation, and we're making some notes as we go. So from the last two bars of the A section, and then it would go back to the top. In this case, instead of the A flat 7 to G7 flat 9, we're now moving to this F sharp half diminished 7th to B13 to E minor. So what you have is a 2 half diminished 7th to 5/7 of E minor. So from the beginning of the line, C major 7, now, interestingly enough, as soon as you see a melody note that has C in it, it's obviously the 5th of the F sharp diminished 7th chord. So this is the F sharp diminished 7th chord. And because we have the 5th in the melody, we can now cover the other notes below it pretty simply. And all we need to do is play an A natural and an F sharp. And in the left hand, we can play F sharp and the 7th of the chord, which is E natural. So this is our chord. It's actually a really nice chord, even though it's very simple. So sometimes you don't need to over-embellish chords with a lot of accidentals and upper structure triads and things like that. Sometimes it's just the simplest chord makes the most sense. So and then, of course, we're getting to a B13 chord. So you might want to come up here. This is what I would do anyway. Come up here to the B natural, here. Play the 3rd of the chord, which is D sharp, and then play the 7th of the chord in the left hand. I often do that, playing 1 and 7 and sometimes the 3rd in the left hand. And that leaves the right hand free to do other things. And all I'm doing is playing like B7 flat 9 diminished chords, which is essentially C diminished 7th over B. So like this. Because there's a lot of space there. So you might want to throw in some extra chords. And now we're in to the E minor 7th. I would suggest putting down 1 and 3 in the left hand as a 10th. So that's a 10th in terms of the interval. And in the right hand, and we don't really need to cover a lot. So we'll say maybe the 7th of the chord, which is this D natural, because of course, this is the 3rd of the chord and this is the 5th of the chord in the melody. So and of course, you don't want to stay there too long. So when we get to this chord, we can think of that like a B7 flat 9 chord because we're heading there anyway. And this goes back to E minor 7. So that's again, we're now getting into the 6th diminished scale by Barry Harris. So go to the 7th of the E minor 7th chord, which is the major 7th, which is the D sharp, right, of an E minor 7. and play diminished chords on that D sharp, which is essentially a B7 flat 9 chord. Now, really all I'm doing here is playing 1, 3, and 7 in the left hand. Of course, we've had that voicing over here. It's the same as this one up here. And in the right hand, think about our C diminished 7th chord playing with the melody. And it's nice here when you're going from the A in the left hand to the B back to the A, just like the melody, and then having that C half diminished chord in between those two. Then when I get to the E major 7th, I'm going to basically do a big voicing here. So you don't want to get too much with it or too rich with it, but you can do. So I would say just plunk down an E way down here, and then I'm just duplicating the melody in the left hand, in the right hand. Sorry, this is like a whole right-handed chord here with the D sharp as well. So E major 7. Nice sort of open voicing. We can think of that maybe like so the first chord, and really what I'm doing, I'm just thinking about these 3 notes here. 1, 2. So E, yeah, 6th diminished scale. So this chord would be an E6th. This would be a F sharp diminished, and then to an inversion of E6th. And then we've got our F sharp there, 7th, and then the 3rd and the 5th. So A natural and C. So that makes a nice. Now, I've got some inner voice work going on in there. So we're starting out in the left hand with a B, E natural, and A. Now, this is the only note that's out of place, and I'll get there in a second. And the melody note is F sharp, so that's covered through here. And you want to go C sharp here in the beginning. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move some leading tones. So C sharp falls to become C natural here, and then the E falls to become D sharp, which is part of the chord. So from the beginning of the line with the E minor 7th, nice. And then it just repeats. So. And the only thing we need to do now is cover off that D flat 7. So the way we're going to do that is play a full stretch of D flat in the left hand. So we've got D flat here, and then move to the 3rd of the chord. So you can't play those together. It's really hard to reach that. So you got to basically move them separately. And then in the right hand, you've got B natural, E flat, and G. Kind of like a G7 sharp 5. the tritone sub for D flat 7. So, or maybe E flat over D flat. Nice chord. And then we're moving to C major 7. And all I'm doing now is repeating what we did in the first video, which is the last A section. And of course, if you want to learn this, just go back to the first video. I'm going to put a link up here in the corner to that video. As we're getting almost now to the end, and all we have is this last 4 bars. So now that we're on the last 4 bars, because it's different. So the last A section, the last 4 bars is different than the first A section, although the first 4 bars are of course the same. Let's make a screenshot of this last 4 bars and let's mark it up a little bit. Now, as you come to the end of a song and you're just about to start your solo, or you're coming to the end of the tune, it has to be really put together well. So let's think about a big voicing to get to this chord here. We've got a 10th in the right hand. You've got C and B natural, so a little cluster. And then we're moving to E7, sharp 9, sharp 5. So let's bring the bass up to E here. We could put the 7th in the left hand, so you've got a D. And then in the right hand, you've got fourths. So think about G sharp, which is the 3rd of the chord, and then D, which is the 7th of the chord, and then in the melody, you've got your sharp 9, which is G. Like that, nice chord. Now the A minor 7th, pretty simple voicing. Maybe a 7th in the left hand and whatever you want in the right hand, doesn't really matter. Because what's most important here is the dissonance that's about to come. And think about the E flat 7 as an F over E flat. So this is like an E flat 7 sharp 11 chord. So nice big voicing here. We've got the F major chord here, and then a C sharp here, or a D flat, and in the left hand, a 10th. So E flat all the way up to G, this. D7 in root position, nothing much going on there, but this should be like a sus chord, F over G. Melody note stays on C, but you could throw that out and put a B natural. Okay, that'll do it for Detour Ahead. What I'm going to do in the next video is actually just record myself using most of these voicings, then interpreting some kind of solo, coming back to these voicings and basically playing the entire tune. So this is my first time going through Detour Ahead, so I'm going to practice it a little bit using this interpretation, and then in the next video I'll play an entire improvisation on Detour Ahead. And any questions that you have about this video or my interpretation or any of the other videos for Detour Ahead and learning songs from the real book, you can post them in the comments below. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If you want to give the video a thumbs up, I'd appreciate that. And subscribing to the channel is easy. Just hit the little bell when you do, and you'll be notified of all the upcoming videos that we're making. And then, of course, if you want to visit jazzmentl.com, there's a lot going on over there in terms of sheet music and backing tracks and other downloads that you can get for free and also for small amounts of money and purchases. Okay, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll see you in the next full interpretation of the song by Bill Evans called Detour ahead. Cheers.